In the final months of World War II, the SS hid billions of dollars worth of stolen treasure in salt mines, mountain lakes, and abandoned tunnels across Europe. 80 years later, much of it has still not been found. And every year, hikers, divers, and construction workers stumble across new pieces of it by accident. Somewhere in your country, possibly in your city, possibly in a museum you have visited, hangs a painting that was ripped off the wall of a Jewish family's home moments before they were sent to Auschwitz. The family is dead. The painting is on display. And the people who own it now have no legal obligation to give it back. The Nazi theft of European property was not a side effect of the war. It was the war's purpose, written into Nazi law years before the first invasion. In 1933, weeks after Hitler took power, the German government began legalizing the seizure of Jewish-owned property. Bank accounts were frozen. Businesses were forcibly sold to Aryan owners at a fraction of their value. Homes were confiscated. By 1938, this process had a name. The Nazis called it Aryanization. When the war began, Aryanization went international. Wherever the German army marched, special looting units followed. They had names like the Einsatzstab Reichsleiter Rosenberg, a task force whose only job was to identify, catalog, and steal cultural property from Jewish families across occupied Europe. These units were not improvised. They were professional. They had art historians on staff. They had photographers. They had truck convoys and rail networks dedicated to moving stolen property back to Germany. By 1945, they had taken approximately 600,000 individual works of art, plus millions of books, religious artifacts, jewelry boxes, gold teeth pulled from corpses, and the personal belongings of 6 million murdered people. This was not theft in the ordinary sense. It was an industrial operation. And every piece of it had once belonged to someone with a name. Consider one family. The Rothschilds of Vienna. In March 1938, Germany annexed Austria. Within days, SS officers walked into the Rothschild Palace in Vienna and arrested Louis Rothschild, the head of the family. They took everything. Paintings by Vermeer, Rembrandt, and Franz Hals. A library of 30,000 books. Furniture, silverware, jewelry. The collection had taken the family generations to assemble. It was loaded onto trucks within 48 hours. Louis Rothschild was held in a Gestapo cell for more than a year. To secure his release, his family was forced to surrender every remaining asset they owned in Austria. He was eventually allowed to leave the country with nothing. The Rothschilds were one family. There were tens of thousands of others. The Bloch-Bauer family of Vienna had their gold leaf portrait of Adele Bloch-Bauer, painted by Gustav Klimt, taken in 1938. The painting hung in the Belvedere Museum in Vienna for the next 60 years. Adele's niece, Maria Altmann, did not recover it until 2006. She was 89 years old. The court case lasted 8 years. She died 5 years after winning. The Stern family of Berlin owned a private collection that included works by Cézanne and Pissarro. They were murdered at Auschwitz. Their paintings have never been found. Their grandchildren are still searching. The Gusticker family of Amsterdam owned one of the largest art galleries in Europe. Jacques Gusticker fled Holland in 1940. He fell through an open hatch on the ship carrying him to safety and broke his neck. His widow spent 60 years trying to recover the 1,400 paintings the Nazis took from his gallery. She died before most of them were returned. These are not abstract numbers. Every stolen object was attached to a person. Every person had a name. Most of those names were erased. The stolen treasure flowed in two directions. Some of it went to the top of the Nazi regime. The rest disappeared into the system. Hermann Göring, Hitler's second-in-command, was the most prolific art thief in human history. He personally accumulated over 1,300 paintings, most of them stolen from Jewish families across France, Holland, and Belgium. He kept them in a hunting estate called Karenhall, which he named after his dead wife. He treated the collection as his retirement plan. Hitler was building something even larger. He planned to create a museum in his hometown of Linz, Austria, to display what he considered the greatest art in human history. The collection assembled for the Feuer Museum eventually exceeded 8,000 works. Most of it was stolen. Below the senior leadership, a parallel system distributed treasure to lower-ranking officials. SS officers were given Jewish apartments, fully furnished. German civilians who had lost their homes to Allied bombing were resettled into homes that had belonged to deported Jewish families, often with the previous owners' photographs still on the walls. Wedding rings stripped from concentration camp prisoners were melted down into gold bars and deposited in Reichsbank accounts under the name Melmer account, after the SS officer who delivered them. By 1945, an estimated $200 billion in modern dollars had moved through this system. The exact figure can never be calculated. The Nazis kept careful records of what they stole, but most of those records were destroyed in the final weeks of the war. In the spring of 1945, with Germany collapsing, the Nazis tried to hide everything. A salt mine in Altaussee, Austria, was packed with 6,500 paintings, including works by Michelangelo, Vermeer, and Bruegel. The mine was wired with explosives. The local SS commander had orders to detonate it before Allied forces arrived. The local miners, working in secret, defused the explosives the night before the demolition was scheduled. The art survived. Other hiding places were not so lucky. Lake Toplitz, in the Austrian Alps, became a Nazi dumping ground in the final weeks of the war. SS units drove trucks to the lake's edge and threw crates of counterfeit currency, gold bars, and document boxes into water 350 feet deep. Divers have been searching the lake for 80 years. The lake has killed 7 of them. What remains at the bottom has never been fully recovered. The Merkers mine in central Germany was found by American troops in April 1945. Inside, they discovered 8,500 gold bars, paintings from Berlin's national museums, and crates of suitcases. Some of the suitcases contained gold teeth, wedding rings, and eyeglasses taken from concentration camp prisoners. American soldiers wept when they opened them. Other caches have never been found. The Amber Room, a chamber lined with 6 tons of amber and gold leaf that was stolen from the Catherine Palace in Russia, disappeared in 1945. The Krakow altarpiece, a 500-year-old wooden masterpiece by Veit Stoss, was found in a basement in Nuremberg by accident. The Hungarian gold train, a 42-car convoy carrying treasure stolen from Hungarian Jews, was intercepted by the US Army. Its contents, valued at hundreds of millions of dollars, were largely lost or sold by American officers in the chaos of the post-war occupation. Every year, new pieces resurface. A painting in a Munich apartment in 2012, hidden behind cans of food. A Renoir in a Virginia flea market in 2009, bought for $7. A Pissarro in a French farmhouse in 2014, owned by a family that had no idea what was hanging on their wall. The treasure is not lost. It is dispersed. And much of it is dispersed by design. This is the part that most documentaries never reach. After the war, the Allied governments established procedures to return stolen property to its rightful owners. These procedures failed almost immediately. Most of the rightful owners were dead. Their families had been scattered across continents. Documentation had been destroyed. Museums and governments that now possessed the stolen property had no incentive to give it back. By 1950, the recovery effort was over. The remaining property, which amounted to the vast majority of what had been stolen, was absorbed into national museum collections, sold to private buyers, or simply kept by the post-war German families who had received it during the war. In 1998, more than 50 years after the war ended, 44 nations signed the Washington Principles on Nazi-confiscated art. The principles called for museums to research the provenance of their collections and return looted works to the heirs of the original owners. The principles were not legally binding. The results have been dismal. According to a 2020 study, only a small fraction of the estimated 600,000 stolen works of art have been returned to the families they were taken from. Major museums in the United States, France, Germany, Switzerland, the Netherlands, and Russia continue to display works whose provenance is openly disputed. Heirs who attempt to recover their family's property face legal systems that often favor current possessors over historical owners. Many give up. Many die before their cases are resolved. The injustice has a generational dimension. The grandchildren of murdered Jewish families are now elderly themselves. The window for recovery is closing. Within a generation, most of the people with direct knowledge of what was taken will be dead. The stolen property will then become, in legal terms, simply property. Its origins will fade. Its rightful owners will exist only in archives. This is the part of the Holocaust that did not end in 1945. It is still happening, slowly, every year that passes without restitution. Every stolen Nazi treasure has a story. Most of those stories end the same way. A family in Vienna or Amsterdam or Warsaw spent generations building a collection. A Klimt portrait. A wedding ring. A grandfather's pocket watch. A child's silver christening cup. The objects were not just objects. They were the visible record of a family's existence. In a single afternoon in 1938 or 1941 or 1943, an SS officer walked into the home and took everything. The family was sent to a camp. The objects were sent to Berlin, or to Hitler's museum collection, or to the home of a Nazi official, or into the international art market. 80 years later, the family is gone. The objects are still here. Most of them are not coming back. This is what was stolen, and this is what was never returned. If you found this video valuable, consider subscribing for more deep dive history content covering the crimes that history forgot to punish. Thank you for watching.